Welcome to DJN TV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. It is time now for us to get our geek on. That's right, you've been waiting all week to get the geek on, and the man is here, the one and only Ben Stowe.
Why do you start every show so quiet? Good evening, everybody. Why don't we have hey, everybody, it's Tuesday and we've got Ben and this is going to be awesome.
But I don't want to lie to people.
Okay,
so
why don't we start good? Like, hey, everybody, we've got Ben and this is going to be terrible, but let's just put on a happy face.
Be fired up about it.
I mean, let's...
It's going to be the worst show ever, but we're going to do it and do it well. Thank you guys for joining us tonight here on DJN TV. We are going to be talking about a lot of different topics tonight, but we're going to dig into a couple of documents Ben's got, and we're going to talk about the restarting and running our businesses and all this different when it comes to this new world we live in. But before we get to that, we've got more important things to talk about than all of that.
Okay.
You went camping this past weekend. And for those of you who don't like the fluff before the show, I don't care right now.
Fast forward
5 minutes. I'll even put in the description of the video, I will go edit it and go and put the number in of when we get back into the topic. But this is important.
Yeah, so then you can skip the crummy intro and you can skip the fluff.
You went into the northern woods of Minnesota, braving bear, moose, mosquitoes, fish.
All of the above. Yeah. There was not another human for miles in any direction. And it was really cool. We absolutely had every walk of wildlife you could imagine. And for the most part, they didn't really mind us too much. There was a couple swans that were a little irritated if we got a little too close to their nest as we were on the lake, but, something big was in the woods behind us, and we couldn't really tell if it was bear or deer, but it didn't really bother us, and we weren't going to bother it. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I've only been married to my wife for 20 years, and her family has this place that they've had for generations. And you know how it is in Minnesota, right? These secret spots in the woods that are 100 years old, have been handed down from generation. And it's not that I haven't been invited. I've just never had time. My son's actually been out there a few times, and this is my first time going. And of course, something that I share with my colleague and fellow DJ and TV, Howie, is I'm an Eagle Scout. I love camping. I used to go camping all the time.
Nice.
And yeah, and I have lost the ability to do that because I've sunk myself so much into work. And Memorial Day weekends, one I was typically very busy on. So, and that's one of the times they go. Actually, about the only time they go to this campsite, which is, by the way, you have to hike or ATV miles through woods, and I mean miles, to get to what they call the landing, which is not a landing. It's just a piece of shore where you can put in a canoe or a boat, small boat, and then you go across the lake, and then you get to the campsite. So, this is about as remote, I think, as you can get and still be in America.
Oh, goodness.
But it was great. We fished and we ate what we caught, except for, some cobbler and some beans and, traditional camp things you have to have.
I saw that. You had some neat pictures there.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Sausage in the beans. Signal. Was that what I was seeing?
What's that?
Was it sausage or brats cut up in the beans, or?
Yeah, they had sausage and bacon. One of the guys brought 3 pounds of ends and pieces from bacon. So we had an abundant supply of bacon and beans. You can't get any more cliche than that.
And if you guys have ever I would assume you guys were in tents because you hiked in.
Yep.
Yeah, you're in
very small tent.
You're in tents. And once it's in northern Minnesota, unless there's a wind or storm coming in, it generally gets really quiet. You hear the loons and maybe some crick or some frogs, what have you. But if you're in a campsite with a bunch of guys who've just had beans and whatever fried fish, it's generally kind of noisy for a little while.
And I have my son in my tent, but no comment. So it was actually so quiet. This was a really cool lesson in acoustics. Leave it to me, ever the nerd. That we could stand on our shore And I don't know the distance across the lake. I'm going to guess a solid mile. We could stand on our shore and we could shout to guys in their boat 3/4 of the way across the lake. And of course, sound does travel faster, through water. But what was really cool too is even when the swans would fly over and or the geese and they would, honk or whatever you call it, when, you would hear that echoing off the various tree lines, and you could time it. I just thought that was the coolest thing, to be able to yell across the lake.
Yeah.
And talk back and forth from boat to shore at 3/4 of a mile. It was just wild.
You catch anything? Yeah, okay. I'll open up.
Yeah, we got various reports. My son and my wife's nephew went down to the landing, whatever, and they were gone an awfully long time, and we were a little concerned that perhaps they had swamped the canoe and were learning to swim. So we shouted out to the boat out in the lake, which had, I think, my wife's brother or something in it, and saying, hey, do you see the canoe? Because the canoe is kind of around a point we couldn't see, and they're like, yeah, there's a canoe. We're like, okay, good.
We're
They're
good yet.
taking their time. So, anyway, I tell you what, industry, I don't want to scare you, but I might go back and just, you may never hear from me again. It was a lot of fun.
So again, for those of you who are like, oh, will they ever get to the topic? We'll get there. Again, I'll put the number there below.
It's only been 5 minutes.
We've been home, in your situation, you've been home way more than you have since you probably were, 6, that year old. Talk a little bit about how your connection with the family, and specifically, you've been able to spend some time with your kids. This is something I've wanted to talk about a little bit, and I think that you've had a great experience with your son this past weekend to be able to do some things. For those out there who that don't have that experience of going from a super busy world to all of a sudden being able to spend time with the children we haven't been able to spend much time with, kind of talk a little bit about that for us.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about the fact that I've literally been watching my grass grow. That I'm not here enough to notice the changes in nature, to notice like, oh, I have a cherry tree that actually blossoms. I didn't even know that. I'm usually gone so much this time of year. Weird, right? So the same thing can be said about our kids. You come back and there's chunks that are gone. They've just sort of morphed into another person. And I think my kids and I have a really good relationship. It's just usually more of a virtual one.
Mm-hmm.
We communicate a lot. It's just in the ways that technology allows us to. And so now being together a lot presents both some really cool opportunities and some challenges, of course. But yeah, I think it's been good. I think there's certainly some things about this that I'm going to miss, and there's some things about this that I'm going to try hard not to miss. There are some parts of normal, like I said, I'm just not rushing back to. And the same can be said for my wife. And that was actually, I'm bearing my soul here on a show that's watched by thousands of people all over the world. I get that. But bearing my soul, one of the things I was actually a little bit worried about is in 25 or 30 years when I retire, and suddenly I'm home all the time, what will that relationship with my wife be like? Because right now we have a dynamic that has a lot of separation, and we have a great relationship, but part of that is because we have space. And so I thought, boy, will we, when we're together all the time, will that be a problem? And turns out it's not. We're actually getting on great, which I feel super fortunate about, that, that frankly, she hasn't changed the locks. Of course it wouldn't do her any good because I hadn't left the house. But so, yeah, I think it's nice to know that you actually do like the people you live with. I think it's nice to be around for those everyday, boring moments, so to speak, that just, that's life. That's those fleeting seconds, that we only get once. So it's been rewarding, I think, and challenging. And I like the challenge too. You don't want it all to be like Leave It to Beaver, Yeah. Which, by the way, we did have lots of beavers at the campsite too. They actually did us a real solid and cut down some really nice trees. But, and that's not what real life is like. Real life isn't Leave It to Beaver. Real life is complicated and messy, and that's where the good stuff is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes some of the best stuff is in the middle of that mess. That's for sure. So, well, that's good. We've been experiencing similar, with our college kids. Everyone's home. We have all the kids home right now, and initially there was a huge concern about, okay, so now we're bringing in some in essence adults back into the house, and
Right.
sometimes that there's a little conflict about the middle children who are now getting a little older, and they were in essence the old ones in the house for a period of time, and now how is this dynamic going to all play out? And when Lori and I went up to Fargo to move our college student back, I think both of us were thinking in the back of our heads, this could get ugly quick. Again, just not knowing how everyone is going to fit in under one household again like that. So it has. There's been a few moments, way fewer than I would have expected. There have been many more precious moments that because if I would have been off DJing or doing this, that, or the other thing, things that we would have missed and we wouldn't have been there to do, or to have those moments to teach, guide, coach, just experience that silliness, and we can do that. And so, yeah, it's as making the best of a bad situation, and the making that lemon out of lemonade. Well, it's been some really, in some cases, some very tasty lemonade. We'll call it that.
Life isn't a photo op, the stuff that you put on the Christmas card or you put in on Facebook or whatever. Those are just highlights of life, but that isn't life. And there's all that essence of, like you said, the messy stuff, the day-to-day stuff, the boring stuff, but that's all part of it. That's all part of these, of their lives. And the counterpoint to that is that now that we're back to work in sort of a limited capacity at the office, I'm sort of splitting my time between kind of partially working from home and partially going into the office, both to sort of help ease the number of people in the office, but also to support and be with the staff that are working in the office. And it's reminded me of how much I love the chemistry we have at work. Mm-hmm. I miss their silliness. I miss their, but I miss their personalities, and I miss their dedication to our customers. And it's really fun to see that dynamic of these people in person again. So I've enjoyed that too. I guess what I'm saying is I have two families, mm-hmm. and I've enjoyed spending the time with the one that's related to me, and I've enjoyed reconnecting with the one that I'm fortunate enough to work with.
Good. All right, we'll put a little stop or a gauge or thing in that. So that's at 12. So 8:12. So Ben, let's dig into tonight's topic. You have been involved with, and we've talked about this, a guide for the events industry, and you have a copy of that. So let's kind of talk about, for those who are not aware of that, it was EAS. I'm sorry.
ESA.
ESA.
Actually, I have. Yeah, it's the Event Safety Alliance.
Excellent.
And we've seen this book in previous shows.
There we go. Yep.
And this book, we've talked about it a few times. The ESA, I was going to say, is like, it was a couple of years old, but it turns out it's actually more like 7 or 8 years old. It surprises me, but principally, I can summarize what I believe is the mission of the ESA as follows. If we do not do a good job of self-regulating as an industry, we will be regulated. And nobody is going to do a better job of regulating our industry than we can do it ourselves. So I think the industry as a whole wanted to take it upon themselves and take ownership and responsibility for regulating ourselves and establishing, best practices and that sort of thing, so that we wouldn't invite outside regulation, i.e. government regulation. We know our industry better than anybody, and we want to be safe more than anybody.
Yeah, sure.
So that, I think, is why the ESA exists. I think that's why the ESA has come into existence. It was born out of tragedies like the Sugarland concert in Indiana at the State Fair and the collapse, and the Station nightclub fire, and real tragedies. And COVID-19 is shaping up to be another one. Certainly, if not a tragedy, a challenge. But I think the people who've lost loved ones would say it's absolutely a tragedy. Mm-hmm. And in any case, our industry involves putting people together in groups, which is one of the challenges right now with a highly contagious respiratory virus. And so the ESA is trying to find ways to respond to that. And so they've created this guide, which I didn't have any part of. And I say that because I do have a part in one that's coming. So This is the event, the reopening guide, basically from the ESA. And it is available free. I put a link on the Ben Stowe and Friends Facebook page. I'll be happy to share it with you, John. I'll be happy to share it with anybody. And frankly, you know what? It says it right here at the bottom.
Please share this guide.
Yeah. Look, again, we all want to reopen safely. And one of the real frustrating things for people right now, and to complicate it, is the issue is becoming politicized. So let me just say, before we get into anything else, I'm not picking teams. Okay. So nothing that I am going to say should be construed as being for one side or the other. You want to know whose team I'm on? I'm on your team. We want to get back to work, but we want to do it safely. So if you have a political inclination about something I say, that's on you. It's your inclination. It's not my statement. Okay. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Say there's nothing political about this to me. My food on my plate is my food on my plate. I just want to get back to work and eat. Right. So as facts change, so must your position.
Sure.
That's just, to me, that's common sense. That's as a scientist, as a person who thinks scientifically, if we learned new things about audio, we would change the way we do audio. We've talked about that in many shows. As we developed FIR filters, we don't necessarily use IIR filters, and so on and so forth. When Class D amplifiers became good and we figured out how to get rid of the oscillations, we didn't have to use Class AB amplifiers anymore. So I think the same thing is occurring here. As we learn about this virus, which has only been around, as far as we know, like 5 months, that's pretty new. It makes sense that we don't really know everything. And by the way, P.S., surprise, I'm not a doctor. I'm a heck of a sound guy, but I'm not a doctor. and even the doctors.
But you did, wait a second, but you did wear a lab coat and play one in
I did.
the geek
I
boot
did.
camp.
And I come from a whole family that's in the biology field. I am the black sheep, being in the physics field. The rest of my family is all in the biology field, including my own daughter. I thought maybe I could start a new family branch, but no.
No.
So, conversations around the Thanksgiving dinner table are pretty interesting. And so, coming from the context of people who've dedicated their lives to understanding anatomy and physiology and biology, I understand some of those things. But what I really understand is that science is not picking a position and defending it. Science is the continuous search for what is the truth. And again, when you have new information, then you have to change your position. And so I think that's what's really frustrating for people right now is, I think, myself included, I wish somebody would say, here's what happens, here's how it spreads, here's how we're going to beat it, the end. That would be great. But that isn't reality. And so, now people are saying, well, do I wear a mask? Don't I wear a mask? More on that later. Can it travel on surfaces? Can it travel on surfaces? Listen, we're going to have to zig when it zags. We're going to have to move with the findings. And it's really frustrating for me to see people posting links that are 2-3 months old, which is ancient history in a 5-month-old, virus, to defend a position. So if we've learned nothing else here, it's that we have to keep up as science keeps up. I don't even want to. I almost went down one of those political rabbit holes.
You were going there. I was just about ready to push the button, the little buzz button. Next topic. So Ben,
it's frustrating. And I'll tell you what. Let me just jump into this guide for a second.
There we go. That's where we wanted to head to. Yeah. So they want to go to the guide and kind of talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, because it sort of says something that I found really important right here on page 2, which is basically right after the, hey, let's get to know each other, page 1, page 2, and I'm going to read it verbatim. And this is why I think this is really important. All right. I got 3 families. I got my family here at home that we talked about. If you skip the first 8 minutes and 12 seconds, you might as well go back and watch it. I got my family that I go to the office and work with. And then I've got you. And I think everybody that knows me knows that I deeply care about my industry. If you're watching this, you're part of my 3rd family. So family, we've got an opportunity here. We're starting to kind of get back to work. And those of us who do bigger events are really excited for those that are doing smaller events, because that is a necessary step in the process. So let me read right here from page 2. Quote, If small events and venues can reopen without increasing COVID-19 transmission rates, it will open the door for progressively larger spaces to implement similar measures on a larger scale in the future. If, on the other hand, the first attempt at a safe reopening is a failure, that could set back the entire event industry. In summary, don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is great. We can regulate ourselves and we can do some safe things.
So what kind of events does the guides and such that they're working on? What kind of, from what size to what size are they talking about?
They don't ever specify in here because everything is scalable and nothing is scalable all at the same time. And it says that in various places throughout here in so many words that there is no one size fits all. And again, the facts are emerging. My company has its own COVID-19 plan, and it's dated for a reason because it's going to change, and it's going to change frequently, and it's frustrating, but it's important to keep up. A cool thing about the ESA, I had a great conversation with the executive director the other day, and the ESA was really born out of these large events, touring, and it's kind of aimed at the touring and venue world, as it were. I don't want to say that DJs aren't important to them or weren't on their radar, because that's not true. But DJs have not been historically a part of the ESA for the last 7 years. The ESA actively welcomes and is seeking to embrace the DJ community because they recognize that DJs are an important part of the performance landscape. And that, again, if we can do weddings of 100 or 200 to 300 people safely, that can potentially be scaled, and events of 10,000, 30,000, 100,000 maybe can be done safely. But DJs are out there as event professionals and have a tremendous opportunity. And I was very excited to hear that the ESA welcomes DJs as members and active participants, and I think they should. But again, I'm very pleased to hear that, because here you go, DJs. A lot of times DJs say, why does the pro audio world not take us seriously? Well, come on. You only have to look around the DJ industry for a little bit to figure that one out, right?
Yeah.
But there are those of us who have a foot in both camps who absolutely love DJs and want the best for you. We know that you are dedicated professionals. You're taking time out of your Tuesday night to watch a show on how you can do events safer, or previous Tuesdays about how to do audio better, or whatever it might be. So I know you're professionals, and I know you can help raise the bar for everybody. A rising tide raises all boats. So this is really cool. And what's really exciting about that is the ESA and I have talked about both using my platform and your platform, John, to help welcome DJs into the fold and help share this information so that we can, and that includes KJs and everybody else too, so that we can all get back to work more safely. On the other camp, in my pro audio world, they've also said, would you help us craft the next level of policy or best practice, or whatever the appropriate word is, on how do they say it? I think they said it so much better because they're a great professional organization, but equipment hygiene, basically.
Okay.
People have been asking a lot, how do I clean a microphone? We've talked about that in previous shows. Well, now there's two answers to that. There's how do I clean a microphone, and there's how do I kill COVID-19 off a microphone? Mm-hmm. And part B is how do I not kill the microphone in the process?
That, yeah.
So that's going to be coming. I'm excited to be a part of a very big group of people that's going to be working on that. And to that end, by the way, if you look at the last 6 pages of this book, it's list after list of all the people that were involved in putting this together. There's several pages like that.
Give me an example of, not names specifically, but what walk of life are the people who are involved with putting a document like that together?
Well, it takes a lot. And for example, the people that they've been talking about being involved in my small group on equipment hygiene will include doctors, because, as I said, I'm not a doctor. Mm-hmm. It will include, other biology professionals. It will include equipment manufacturers. It will include people like myself. If you look at the list in this, it includes lawyers, risk management entities. There's a lot of moving parts here. Mm-hmm. And it's very potentially dangerous to establish a policy. Sure. Because if the policy itself is faulty, then you have a problem there. So again, I can't say enough good things about the ESA, and I'm proud that I've had that book since they were founded. I have several copies, and I've sent several copies. I remember doing an event. I'm not going to say where, but it was a large event where we were there for several weeks, and we had 10,000 plus people a night for this event. and we had severe weather roll in, and nobody had a plan. Not the event coordinator, not the venue, not the lighting company, not the video company, not the staging company. I was just there providing audio, and I said, "Hey, the plan's already been written. Here's what we do." And I actually gave the event coordinator a copy of the book, and they said, "Wow, I didn't even know such a thing existed." So, lots of moving parts going into that.
So you mentioned an event producer at that level. When the document is finalized here and they've done their things and they've updated it, who are the ones who would benefit from that, or where would that be used in the entertainment world?
I think everywhere. I think it benefits DJs and KJs. I think it benefits House of Worship, but I also think it benefits Grammy winners. They don't want to get sick either. So I think this is soup to nuts. I think this is, sort of a top to bottom approach. The virus does not discriminate. It doesn't care if you're a Grammy winner or a DJ. It's just looking for a biological host. So, I think it's everybody. And that's kind of what the broad stroke of the document has to be. Microphones are microphones. Mm-hmm. Now, certainly, you can treat them a little bit differently if you're a Grammy winner and you carry your own and it stays in a case.
It's yours, yeah.
Limited hands touch it versus a KJ who has 50 people a night grabbing that microphone. That's an important note about the virus I want to make about really any virus, I think, but it's about exposure. So the longer you're exposed to it and the greater quantities of you're exposed to it, the more likely you are to get sick. Pretty simple, right?
And that's
so everything we want to do. And again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not qualified to say this, but this to me is just common sense science stuff here. If we just think about it logically, the goal we want to do is to limit the viral load and to limit the length of exposure. And whenever we do that, we're going to improve our chances of being more safe, particularly when you have a virus that is carried by people who are asymptomatic, which could include you and it could include me.
Mm-hmm. That it could. In Minnesota, of course, things are opening up. There's one of the things we hear a lot in the media talking about the opening up is that businesses have to be putting together a plan of some sort. I'm assuming that at NLFX you guys have been working on such things. Can you talk a little bit about what's been involved with that part of getting things ready for you guys to be able to open up to the public and such?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a process that's involved several revisions. Again, as the information has changed, so has our approach changed. And that is frustrating when you say, well, last week the CDC said this and this week they say this. Yeah, but I may be frustrated, but I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm going to say, okay, new information is out and that's what I'm going to go with.
Sure.
We have, as almost every business probably does, we have a handbook, we have policy and procedure and things established for virtually everything. We have a second book for our stagehands just because there's an additional layer of things that they need to know. And we cover everything from use of power tools to use of ladders to use of PPE. So why would this be any different? Why wouldn't we just cover this in the same way? You have a fire drill. Let's think about COVID-19 in the same way. And whatever pandemic comes next, you can bet this is not the last virus that we will ever encounter as a species. I'm not saying that to be a buzzkill. I'm saying it because it's true. Mm-hmm. And this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to prepare ourselves better for the next one and to improve, just as we have in every situation throughout our entire existence on Earth as a species. We have always figured out how to do things better, and this should be no exception. So in large part, we didn't shoot from the hip much. We relied very heavily on information from the Minnesota Department of Health and the Department of Economic and Development and Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED, Minnesota DEED, mm-hmm. and the CDC. And we said, well, if this is what you think we should do to be safe, then that's what we're going to do. At the same time, they do give you a little latitude and enough rope to, really tie yourself up good, I think. But, we took what we felt was kind of a pragmatic common sense policy, again, designed to minimize exposure in both time and viral load. Even though our county has, I think, one active case. I think we've had 5 or 6, but it's very minimal. But we don't want to wait until we're in a situation like Italy or New York. And I think that my friends in New York City would say the same thing. They say, don't make our mistake. We made it for you.
Yeah.
You know, don't let this thing pile up on you, you know, and frankly, I think that, again, it's just common sense. Are we doing things excessively? Is this an overabundance of caution? I suppose so. And that's, to me, that's the right thing to do. I wear a harness when I go rigging, and I'm not going to wait till I fall to put it on. So
wait. Oh, wait, I got to get my harness on.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sure there are people that are watching this that are getting upset because I see your posts and you're my friends and you're saying, oh, this is silly. And this, you know, I hope it is. I would, nothing would make me happier than a couple of years from now to look back on this and go, wow, none of that was necessary. But I would feel a whole lot worse if I look back and said, we shoulda, we coulda, we oughta, you know, and I just don't want to be that guy. So we tried to craft a policy that has made it safe for our employees and safe for our customers. And again, we've borrowed heavily from the suggestions from MDH, OSHA, the CDC. And one of the cool things here is my favorite part. I highlighted this. A date. Saying, you know, so you know you're looking at the most recent information. This is going to change, folks. It's going to change, and we're going to change with it.
Just want to wrap things up here in just a couple of minutes here, Ben. Jumping back to the document, the ESA, the guide for reopening. If people want to get a copy of that, it's a digital document. What was the best way for them to grab that? Because people have been asking about that. Yeah,
just again, it's on the Ben Stowe and Friends Facebook page. Feel free to hop over and join that page. Some friends of mine created that page, and since it has my name on it, I feel obligated to be a part of it. Or you can contact me directly, or John, I can get you that link and you can distribute it. But we're going to make it really easy to get this document. Again, it's not my document. I'm just sharing it because I think it's good. There's another document that I want to tell you about, and there are probably others that we could be sharing as an industry. But my friend Josh Lask from LB Entertainment has produced his own document, and he's been willing to share that with people in the industry.
Nice.
So if anybody's interested in that, just email me. He kind of wants to know who's getting it, and that makes sense. So contact me, and I'll put you in touch with him. But he's crafted one for his own company that's event specific, saying here's how we're going to handle these things, and it's pretty good. And you know, again, together we can come together and we can build on these things, and we can all improve them. Hopefully everybody will take a look at this ESA document. It's not super cover to cover reading. You know, there's parts of it you may think don't apply, but there's good stuff throughout here in a few places. One thing I want to point out is on page 3, and it talks about patron education. And patrons are guests. They're not workers. They're people who come to an event. And this can be a challenge. We've seen people losing their stuffing at Costco over a mask and this and that. And you know, I hate masks. I do. I hate wearing it. But I just want to say a thing on that in a second. But you have to get everybody to go along or it doesn't work. You know, it's no different than, and it says this in the document. It talks about the magnometers and the bag searches after 9/11. You know, sooner or later, you know, we get used to it. Do I want to wear a mask every day? No, I really don't. I really hope they say, nah, you don't need to do that anymore because I don't like them. But I will wear it when I'm instructed to wear it. And again, I'll talk about that in a second. So patron education, this is key. It says, because COVID-19 is highly contagious, everyone, patrons as well as workers, must do their part. And here's the takeaway. If everybody is doing things that allow us to get together and have events safely, we're going to have more of them. And that's a good thing. I'm excited about it. I can't wait. And I really can't wait till the day we don't have to worry about this stuff, but we're not going to wish this thing away. So they talk about face coverings on page 6.
And for that, I just want to, before you go there, I did mention earlier in jest that we were going to talk about face masks, but that was not my intent to talk about face masks tonight. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you know what? I'm not afraid to take this one head on because I can empathize with everybody. I hate them. I don't like wearing a face mask, and but I will, and I don't know if it protects me or protects you or doesn't do anything at all, but I'm not a doctor. I do know that the CDC currently recommends it, and I'm going to be a good sport and I'm going to wear it. You know, it inconveniences me, but I'll live, you know, I hope. So, when I go to the store, I put it on. My belief is the mask would help prevent the spread of droplets which carry the virus. And so it's likely to not really protect me. It's likely to protect other people from me if I was an asymptomatic carrier. And I'm good with that. We have a casino that has shows coming up starting in July. We have several big shows, big names, and they've told us, you're going to wear a mask. It's not negotiable. Mm-hmm. You know what? I didn't argue about it. I said, sounds good. I'll take the paycheck. Thank you.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like I said, we don't have to wear them for long. But in the meantime, if you do, at least I have a pretty stylish one. So there seems to be a lot of debate about the masks, a lot of huff and puff about it. Again, you do you. I'm not going to politicize this, but again, to me, that does not seem like the hill I'm willing to die on. I'm not going to fight this mask thing. Again, people are upset at me in particular. If you're upset at me for saying that, well, I guess you can be that way. But the best guidance we have from the CDC says we should wear them. And if we've completely lost faith that there's nobody driving the bus, then we're in really big trouble. So it talks about this. It recommends you wear them in this guide. So I guess you can be mad at them too. But it has some good guidance in here. So again, that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not taking a stand on it. I'm going to wear mine, and when I feel it's appropriate. Mm-hmm. They do talk on page 6 also about microphones, headphones, and other personal equipment, and that was sort of the only thing they really covered here in this document. And again, we're working on another document that hopefully gives us some guidance. By bringing together biological minds and equipment minds to say, how can we best get rid of this virus without damaging our equipment? So hopefully that information is coming.
Speaking of the microphone, this past weekend, of course, I did sound for an outdoor graduation, a drive-by graduation. And last week, Ben, I had you send the covers down and the sanitizer spray. Mm-hmm. And the school superintendent and principal and such, they were very impressed because we were able to we had one person whose job was to go up, clean mic, goes in, brings it back, takes the foam off, sanitizes and put new foam and is consistently going back and forth and having, according to the Minnesota Department of Health, the safest way to handle microphones. And so he'd bring the microphone back, and he pulls out. He had some of these wipes, the Clorox wipes or whatever they are. I don't know. And he wipes the body of the microphone down, and then puts the new foam on. And it's like,
but what you're doing when you do that, John, is you're establishing yourself as a professional. And even if, in hindsight, 5 years from now, we look back and say, you know what? Turns out it wasn't spread by touching things, and that was all just a waste of time. We won't know that until it's too late to know it one way or the other.
Yeah. So
for now, even if all you're doing is safety theater and we are just showing people that we're taking an abundance of caution, it's a good thing. Exactly. It's going to get us back to work faster. Even if masks prove to be completely useless, but it helps us come back together, fine. So yeah, the hygienic covers, the spray, the Lysol wipes, whatever, do these things in an abundance of caution. We had that discussion ourselves, well, why do we have to wipe down every doorknob if it isn't spread by touching things? You know what? Because it doesn't take much time. Just do it. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Like I said, who knows how this video will age? Who knows what this will look like in 5 years? I'm sure somebody is busy scribbling hate mail to me right now.
Actually, I think Howie went and pulled out his ESA book and he's reading because he finds it an interesting and thrilling read.
It is fascinating because one of the things that's fascinating about it, and again, in the lens of history, we will look at this thing differently too. But what's really fascinating about it is it's kind of like the instructions on the side of a preparation H tube that say, do not take orally. The only reason that's on there is because somebody did. So you have to look at this guide and say, why is this in writing? And again, if we do a good job of self-regulating, we will not be regulated and we'll get back to work. And maybe even if this is the lowest concern on your radar, we may just save a life too.
There is
And
that.
you know what? It might be yours.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So anyway, I'm excited to get back to work, and this is a path. This is a path that lets us do that as safely as we can.
Excellent. Thank you guys for being with us tonight and sharing here. And if you made it all the way to the end, yay. You made it through our personal stuff and then the actual show. I always wonder, when the people start to book out, do they like the personal stuff?
Probably right after I said mask, we lost half.
They
of
lost
them.
half of them. Yeah, exactly. Most of them were gone. But we'll be back here in about 20 minutes at the top of the hour. Jay and Brian are going to come in. We're going to talk a little bit about what kind of things they're doing to get through this time and keep their sanity, which of course for a lot of you've already got an insight of what they've been up to, but that'll be tonight's show at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock Eastern.
Go camping.
There we go. We'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.